welcome to the Esports Performance Summit, and our guest today is Josh Hafkin from Game Gym. Josh, thanks for joining us.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, man, the honor is ours. Hey, could you do us a pleasure for those who aren't familiar with you and Game Gym and giving us a little bit of background on who you are and what you guys are doing?
Sure. My name is Josh Hafkin. I'm the founder and CEO of the Game Gym, which is an esports training center in Washington, like a little bit outside of Washington, D.C. in Potomac, Maryland. And we train kids 10 to 18 in a variety of different esports: League of Legends, Overwatch, Super Smash Brothers, Rocket League, CSGO, and others. And our goal is to help people get better, but also help and provide mentors. There's no coaches for kids really in the esports world, so they don't have anybody to look up to other than Ninja and some of these other people. And so our goal is to, help them learn the X's and O's, but also help them learn, the soft skills like leadership and communication and how to be a good winner, how to be a good loser, when to put the game down. And we're hoping that the structure that we add to things really helps make video games less of a pain point for both kids and parents.
Well, I'm very excited about that topic because I think there's a very big need as well. I'm curious a little bit about your background and how you ended up where you are. There's a lot of things you could be doing in esports, but I'm curious why you landed here.
Yeah. So I was a swimmer. I grew up swimming. I swam competitively through college, and then I competed in the 2012 Olympic trials and then retired after that. And so I had driven myself towards these goals and structured sports and all of this my whole life. And so when I got out, I was like, oh, I'm going to go work in sports. So I got a sports marketing degree and, pursued that path. And as I was getting into it, the options were a lot of jobs in ticket sales, which I did not want to do. And I had the opportunity to work for a marketing company, and I started working with Geico. And Geico kept on asking us, where is the next big groups of people? And this is when the esports stuff, Comic-Cons were starting to get big. And so I was part of launching Geico's gaming program.
Like Geico, like insurance?
Yeah. And
really?
They sponsor a lot of big time esports. They sponsor Team Solomid, which is a big time League of Legends, and other teams. They have other teams as well. Sponsored Panda Global. We sponsored events like the PAX events and local events here like Super Smash Con, and just helped Geico do the same thing that they're doing with traditional sports with esports. And so I built that program up and then moved over to Bethesda Softworks, worked on Wolfenstein 2 and Quake Champions. And then during that time, I started to formulate, those years, I started to formulate this idea of the Game Gym. And it really stemmed from the struggle that I was having to get better. I wanted to get better at Street Fighter. And I was like, why is there no place that I could go to learn how to play Street Fighter better? If I want to learn how to play basketball, there's camps, there's, you go to the courts. If I want to learn how to swim, there's, swim schools and this and that. Like, why is there no place that exists in our whole region where I could go and learn esports? So then it kind of shifted over towards, well, that doesn't exist. Does it exist anywhere? And then that didn't exist. So I was like, oh my God, we have to do this. So it kind of, all came from wanting to get better, but then the realization that no one else was doing it and that I had an opportunity to kind of get out ahead of everybody else.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm excited about the balance you communicated that you guys focus on at the Game Gym, because, a big part of the Esports Performance Summit is we have, always the performance component, but a huge part of performing well is being healthy. And the Game Gym, it sounds like you guys are really looking on overall life balance and health around gaming in such a way that you also get better at gaming as well. Could you talk about that philosophy a little bit?
Yeah. The way that we do things is that we are just trying to help you get better. Our job as educators and coaches for the middle and high school age is to really just promote learning. And whether that's I want to learn because I want to be a pro, or I want to learn because I want to play this game a little bit better and have a great time with my friends, it's our job to help you navigate those different avenues. Right now, there are no bottom rungs to the ladder in this industry. If you think about basketball, you've got rec, and then AAU, and then high school, and then collegiate, and so there's a very distinct ladder. In our industry, it doesn't really exist yet. And so we felt as though we had an opportunity to add structure to the bottom part of this industry and really help kids learn how to game from an earlier age more responsibly. What we're seeing is that every single person, unless they had an older brother, an older sister, or a parent who gamed, was just figuring it out for themselves. And some of us that worked for, some people it didn't work for. But the analogy is kind of silly, but kids are kind of like puppies. You know, they'll eat thumbtacks and they'll do things that will hurt them, but they need to be taught that you shouldn't do that. That's not what you should be doing. And unfortunately, in the gaming world, we've not done that. And I think a lot of parents have kind of abandoned their responsibility to help guide their kids because they don't like video games. And so my goal is to add this structure that then helps us teach kids about the soft skills in video games at 10, 11, 12, and not, 17, 18, 19. So, we're teaching them how to play, we're teaching them how to get better, but a lot of it is on communication. A lot of it is on how to be a good winner, how to be a good loser, how to communicate effectively, and a number of the other kind of soft skills that you learn in traditional sports. But because a lot of our kids, some do play traditional sports, but not all do, they don't have that team atmosphere. So we're trying to create that for them.
Well, and I think that's where I'd like to hone in on next is really like how you guys develop those soft skills of leadership, winning well, losing well, communication. But real quick, before we do that, I'm just curious, what made you pick ages 10 to 18 and not have adult game gyms as well? Or is maybe that something you're considering for the future?
Yeah, it's just that this demographic is underserved. And we have to do a better job of teaching our kids how to navigate this world better. And when you're an adult, the moment's already passed. We need to teach kids how to be safe online, how to, know when to put the game down. Those are skills that are learned, and it's really, really hard to do it when you're 18 and much easier to do when you're 10. Kids are starting to play online, through Fortnite and other games now, Minecraft at, 8, 9, 10. And there has to be an education system and process that goes along with that. Otherwise, it's just lawless.
Well, let's jump in then. I'd love to learn or hear what you guys are doing to help develop those soft skills. Again, you mentioned leadership, communication, life balance, winning well, losing well. I'll hand it over to you to get started, and I'll kind of ask questions throughout, but I'd love to hear what that looks like, and obviously in such a way that the gamers listening, whatever age or stage they may be at, could be kind of feel like how they can integrate into that or apply some of it to their gaming as well.
Yeah. So a lot of it is through repetition. We're not a cure-all in the sense that you're not going to come here one day and, know how to do this better. The idea is that you go through a season. So we're trying to sell our parents and our kids on thinking of video games like sports. And just like in sports, you don't learn you can, but you don't get a majority of your learning from one basketball game or one practice. You get a majority of your learning through going through the season, having the ups and downs, having issues with your coaches and teammates that you need to resolve, working all this time and then either, selling. So what we've done is applied the seasonal structure of traditional sports to video games. And through the course of the season, we talk about these different things in practice. So communication, as our kids are playing Overwatch, we're helping them understand that you have to communicate effectively And you also have to support your teammates. So, there's a lot of negativity online. And I guarantee you that if you are talking to your teammate in a negative way, he's or she is not going to perform as well than if you were supporting them. And so our job is to kind of help them understand the value of, supporting your teammates, and then demonstrate it by, being great coaches, being good mentors, and things like that.
Do you mind if I jump in real quick there? Just because
No,
I'm
go
curious.
ahead.
So what do you see as some of the, you mentioned a little bit there as far as like being negative toward a teammate. What are some of the biggest problem or pain points you see when it comes to communication that you guys have to work on and helping kids with?
Yeah. Overwatch is a great example. And I think a lot of it is sometimes helping people understand that you've got to describe things in a way that people can understand, or you might have to rephrase things. So, for somebody, if they say, hey, somebody is above me, well, that doesn't really help me understand where you are and how this person relates to where you are. I know that they're above you, but I might be in a completely different part of the map than you. So it's really about using communication and trying to use more description to say, Junkrat is top right on the, pillar, or different things like that. And what those things do is they help the kids kind of learn, and they're able to describe what they're seeing and what they're presented with, what the issues are, much more concretely. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you guys have any like I'll call them off the field practice things y'all do in terms of learning communication? Because I know, like in marriage, for example, there are different things people tell you, like, hey, here's some ways to communicate better, and if you say this, then respond that way, and all that kind of thing. And I'm sure a lot of that would apply here. I'm curious if you guys dig into that much and what it looks like.
So there's a lot of like in-game lingo, like each game has its own call outs, and things on the map are called different things. So one is just understanding the language of what you're speaking. The next is being able to use that information effectively. And I think that, one of the things is that maybe the information itself is not important. Maybe it's just finding your voice. A lot of times I really am just promoting our kids to talk and talk effectively. Don't clutter the comm lines with useless conversation, but make sure that you're communicating important information, and then seeing what they think is important and then talking about it with them afterwards. So it's a lot of what we try to do is more analysis and discussion than direction and implementation of a system.
Right.
So we do a lot of, we'll play and then we'll take a break and talk about it. So in terms of, communication styles, it's not that we have a style that we're promoting or anything that we're pushing forward, but it's more that we do a pretty good job of analyzing the communication and helping each person improve. And whether that's, somebody filling the space and talking more, or somebody, giving somebody that opportunity by talking less. A lot of it is just at this point, and for young kids, just getting them to use their voice.
So a lot of kids just maybe a little bit more shy, or don't have that confidence to speak out.
Yeah. Or the opposite. They're always talking, and
Gotcha.
they make it so that other people are unable to find their voice. So what we do as coaches is try to help guide kids and support them in the different things. But then also, if you are talking a ton, and it is cluttering up things, we can also say in a nice way, hey, Timmy, maybe if you don't have something, important to say, try to leave the airways clear so that somebody has the opportunity to say something else.
What about leadership? How do you guys go about developing leadership in some of these kids?
So we try to give them different opportunities to lead. So whether it's in game or we have different events, we have an internship program. There's a variety of different ways that kids can interact with our world and gain some leadership skills. Whether that might be, helping us with our Flex Super Smash Brothers tournament, or, working on their in-game leadership skills. The goal is to present them with those opportunities and then help them learn from them. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. And as I'm hearing all this, because I'm trying to think through like where, when I'm hearing this, I'm thinking like this is a message for gamers for sure, but I'm thinking especially for parents, because the things you're talking about are so applicable. There's a reason why parents send their kids to your gym, the 10 to 18, that's parents paying for that, and just with firsthand experience and all the interviews we've done with the summit and otherwise, know that, for a lot of parents, there's some significant pain points in figuring out how do I help my kid communicate better? How do I help my kid? They may not say become a better leader, but that's kind of what they're aiming toward as far as being more responsible and things like that. So, as you're going through these things, any things you can think about that you may think, hey, translates to home, or because I'm imagining parents and then also just kids wanting, there are probably some kids listening to this that are younger gamers that are thinking, that sounds cool, but what do I do? So, as you have thoughts to throw into there too, that'd be really, really enjoy hearing those too.
So what we've seen, probably one of the biggest things that translates over from games to life, is confidence. For a majority of our members, the thing that they were good at was not valued by other people until we were able to say, this is awesome and you're great at it and we want to help you get better. So, at a very basic sense, a lot of the people who play games, their skills, and they are skilled, they are completely undervalued, and the work that they put into playing Overwatch or League of Legends or Super Smash Brothers, nobody understands what that's like, and the efforts that they have to go to be good at their respective esport. So at a very, very basic level, our existence validating the thing that they love has been very, very powerful. And that confidence can transfer into schoolwork and other things like that. If you feel like you have value, if you feel like there's something you're good at, if you feel like you're working towards something and progressing, you're happy, or most, people are happier. And I think that, at a very, very basic level, just validating that feeling has been really impactful for our members.
And I'm curious, like, what you could share, again, whether it be parents watching this session, or other coaches watching this session, or just gamers with each other, like teammates, wanting maybe encourage each other. This may sound like an obvious question to you, but what is some encouragement you could provide as far as how people could recreate some of these benefits that you guys are doing in the game gen, maybe at home or wherever they may be playing?
One of the best ways to do it is set the tone early. When you are starting your esports program at your high school or your college, or just gaming with your friends, a lot of the people who organize it are the people who have the most passion for what they're doing. And if you set the tone from the very start that this is going to be an inclusive place where we're going to support each other, where, these are our ideals and this is our morals and these are our pillars, then everything else, kind of falls in line after that. I think what ends up happening a lot of times is that people, they don't do those things, and then they have a toxic environment, and it's very hard to change the culture once the culture is established. So, whether you're a parent, a kid, starting your own program, or entering a program that is new, you always have the ability to set that tone. The sign that we want to be online, be somebody you're proud of. And then we hammer that home. And then we also have other signs that, hammer that message home. And so,
and I missed part of it from the connection. So you guys had those signs up around the gym saying,
Yeah.
Which that stands out to me is, it may sound strange to do that at home or other places, but having messages up
Yeah.
around the house or around
Yep.
the gym or wherever else,
Yeah.
displaying messages, that could be really powerful.
Yeah, we have the message on the way out the door is powerful because that's the thing I want them to see as they go home. Because generally, when you're here, you're going to be on your best behavior. You've got coaches looking after you. You're all this kind of stuff. But when you go home and play on your own rig in your own basement, you set the rules. So making sure the kids know that they're setting the rules and that they are in control of who they are online and whether they're a positive force or a negative force is really powerful. And I agree with you that the little notes are important. I have a little note on my desk that says "sit up straight," and like it's little things like that, and they go a long way.
Well, and I'm glad you actually shared that exact example, because a theme that's come up in a lot of these interviews, even though we've talked about a wide variety of topics, and people watching the summit probably are tired of hearing me say this, but when I was an athlete back in high school, in the training gym, the head trainer had this quote up around the wall that said that champions do the little things that others don't want to do, and like being willing to say, hey, this is dumb, I'm not putting these signs up on the wall, but you know what, it makes a difference. Hey, this is dumb, I'm not going to take a drink of water every time I die when I'm playing my game, but you know what, it makes a difference. I'm not going to put a note on my monitor to sit up straight. Well, in 10 years, you're going to wish you did. All those small things like that. So I really appreciate you saying that, because I think there's 'cause I love what you guys are talking about. And you mentioned the fact that often people don't set a good tone initially, and then a toxic environment can get started. It's really hard to fix, which I can totally respect that. And when I hear you say that, honestly, I was thinking, well, why is there a proclivity toward a toxic environment starting at all? Then I thought about, well, social media has that same type dynamic, and I feel like, so I guess gaming being an online kind of not present dynamic, kind of like social media, maybe it allows people I guess it allows people to be a little more toxic without feeling like there's going to be repercussion or responsibility associated. I'd love to hear you discuss that a little bit more.
Yeah, so there's definitely the anonymous nature of things allows people to say things that they would not normally say if their face or name were attached to it. That is huge. Just a fun fact, people actually don't get bullied more online than they do in person. The amount of people who get bullied, I think it was an NPR thing that I heard on the way home. People get bullied online and in person about the same amount. There's like 20% of people who get bullied or something. It's just that when the bullying happens, it's so much more public, and it can be retweeted, and so it gets blown up into these things. So it's not like people are getting bullied more online than they are in real life. So it's a common misconception, and I'll try to find the article and send it to you because I thought it was really interesting. But in terms of can you repeat the question? I got a little sidetracked.
Yeah, no, I was talking about just as far as like why is toxicity
yeah.
developing within gaming? Why is that even a thing?
So one of the reasons I think is that we've gone 20 years without anyone guiding anyone else in this space as they get their start. I think that if we had more kids who came through the game gym as that was their first touch point, we would have a lot more positivity out there in the world. I think that when you are, a little kid and no one is guiding you or looking over your shoulder, and the first time you type in a curse word or something bad and you get a reaction to it, you may up the ante next time. And
whereas if you're playing t-ball, your coach is going to be like, hey, we don't do that here.
That's not okay. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right.
And so I think the lack of coaches has been a huge thing in this world. That it's crazy. I mean, think about it. No other sport or activity do we let our kids just like do their own thing. We guide them through sports. We guide them through school, music, any other type of learning. But like with video games, parents are like, nope, go in the basement. I don't want to deal with this. And personally, I have an issue with a lot of parents. I feel like abandoning their responsibilities as a parent, because
the thing is with parents, when parents were kids, when I was a kid, gaming wasn't online. So
Sure.
if I went and played my Sega Genesis and whatever I'm doing, I mean, I'm not saying that's
Yeah.
healthy, but I'm not interacting with
Yeah.
anyone,
Yeah.
which has its own issues.
Well,
But I'm not. Yeah.
yeah, my thinking is that if your kid is into the tuba, you get into tuba and you learn about the tuba. If your kid is into theater, you learn about theater, you get into theater. If your kid is into gaming, you learn about gaming and you support them, even if you don't understand it or like it or whatever. Like, that's your job as a parent, because you can't regulate or help guide your kid through a world that you don't understand. And if you just decide that you're like, oh, I don't understand gaming, to me, that's abandoning your responsibilities. Because, I mean, yes, it may be hard for you to learn how to play that game. Maybe it's, not something that comes naturally to you, but everybody is capable of understanding Overwatch or Super Smash Brothers or, the other games that kids play. And I feel as though if your kid is into that, you have to understand it so that, if they're playing Overwatch and it's a best of 3 and you're telling them to get off and they're like, no, well, I need to play this one.
Right.
We're in, it's a competitive match, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, no worries, just finish when you're done. Versus if I'm another parent, it's no, turn it off right now. And then
It's a power play.
Exactly. So you have to educate yourself so that you can regulate. And I feel as though if you are not going to take that responsibility on, somebody else has to. And I really feel like that's the responsibility that we're taking on, which I'm happy to do.
Do you have a lot of interaction with parents?
We absolutely, our parents are the best. They're awesome. We get the parents who are like dressing up with their kid and taking them to the Comic-Con. Like, if you think that, video games are why school shootings happen, like, you're probably not signing your kid up for Game Gym. And that's fine. For us, it's about supporting the people who dig our world, and the parents that we have are engaged. They're caring. They want to learn. We've got parents asking me for parent gaming sessions so that they can learn, so that they can play with their kids. So it's a really cool atmosphere that our parents have. And I always tell them when they come in, they're like, well, so do we drop our kid off and then leave? I say, no, I want you to bring orange slices the same way you would to soccer and be here and be a part of this world. Because without the parents, it doesn't work.
Well, I'm thinking about, what if parents, and you just basically just said it, treated their kids practicing with esports down in the basement or wherever they are the exact same as going to soccer practice.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like, and there's, I'm thinking through as from, helping out parents and even helping kids interacting with their parents, setting some of those healthy boundaries of like, hey, this is practice time, from this time to this time, you're practicing, and I'm not going to interrupt you because I wouldn't go pull you out of soccer practice.
Exactly.
To go do your
homework.
If
you don't know the game, you can't set those boundaries.
Right.
If you don't know anything about this world, and look, I'm 31. I played N64, and when they had one controller and one thumb, and then they went to 2 thumbs, I was out. For Halo, I was out. I couldn't do it. But I took the time, and I learned, and I practiced, and I treated it like I was learning how to type, because what was frustrating was that my brain was telling my fingers to do something, and it wasn't doing it.
Right.
But how do you learn how to do that? You do it through repetition in the same way that you learn how to type. Or one of the analogies that I love is music. Music and playing an instrument, playing the guitar, is essentially the same type of learning as playing a video game. Your brain is telling your fingers to do something in a specific rhythm at a specific time that creates an outcome. And in music, it's your fingers creating a melody or a song. And in video games, it's creating a super move or some kind of action. But either way, the learning is the same thing. It's my brain telling my fingers to do something at a certain time in a specific rhythm. So the learning is exactly the same. And yet one of these things, if I tell you I'm learning guitar, it's like, wow, good for you. If I tell you I'm learning a video game, you're going to ask me when I'm wasting my time, even though it's literally the exact same thing. And music can lead you into, seedy worlds as well. So,
well, and I'm wondering, like, with the the disconnect there is, and I think a lot of it is because of I think people in my generation and maybe your generation, and definitely anyone older than us, again, they don't realize the shift that's happened in gaming.
Yep.
Again, when we grew up, Nintendo, Sega
Yeah.
Genesis, all that kind of stuff, is something you did by yourself, or someone literally sat next to you with the controller and you played against each other.
Yeah.
And so that it was all self-contained, but now realizing this global connected dynamic that's happening and the expansion of the scope of what games even are and your interactions with other people, it's just an entirely new world that the fact that we have the term esports and we didn't before.
Yeah.
I think, and I guess people still think of that old mindset and not the new one, and that's part of one of the problems I guess a lot of parents
Totally.
have that create the issues you're describing.
Well, video games still today are more closely associated with their most negative attributes than other activities.
Like you're lazy.
You're lazy, you're unhealthy, you're by yourself, you're a basement dweller. And to me it's like saying if I sign my kid up for gymnastics, I'm signing them up for an eating disorder. If I sign them up for football, I'm signing them up for domestic abuse.
Like concussions and everything else.
Like sure, those things happen, but that's not the defining, thing of gymnastics or football. But with video games, like a lot of people think about the basement dweller, school shootings. I imagine that a lot of people still associate video games with Columbine in those older generations because it was Marilyn Manson, Eminem, and video games are why Columbine happened. I remember them kind of like explaining that to us when we were younger. And I think that the issue is that people have not updated that worldview, and partially it's because this world is so contained. It's siloed, and people are only now starting to pay attention now that we are filling up arenas. If we were filling up arenas 20 years ago, they would have done that. Yeah, give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, we have a coding program that comes in the afternoons on Thursdays.
No problem.
I just think it's a little unfair at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, there's a pretty massive what do you call it, stereotyping happening there that's probably way too expansive.
Well, it's educational. We need to educate people that this world is evolving.
Right. And those events you're describing, there's a lot of complexities there that's beyond picking up a controller.
Yeah.
You talk about helping people win well and lose well. I'm curious, what are some things that stand out there that help you guys teach kids to win and lose well?
It's so funny. One of the things that majority of times when you get a new gamer here and we're playing Smash, they'll win and they will be like, yes, like, got you, like, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, we're about to play 500,000 games of Smash. Like, if you celebrate every win or every loss like it's the Super Bowl, like, it's going to be a long season. And so what we're trying to teach people is that it's not about the wins and losses. It's about the process. It's about the work that you put in. It's about the friends that you make. It's about the effort that you put in, and then putting yourself out there. And I'm a huge proponent of competition is key to life. You are going to compete in high school. You're going to compete for college spots. You're going to compete for jobs. You're going to compete for all kinds of different things. And you have to be able to be a good winner and a good loser. And so part of it is just understanding that, these are not, winning a game is not the end all be all. It's a larger process. There's a larger thing at play. So perspective is one of the things that we try to offer them, is that, this is a process and that your goals are to navigate the process in a balanced way. And that means, be proud of yourself, but know that there's still work. And if you lose, be okay with that, know that there's still work. There's always room to get better.
And this is probably an obvious answer for you, but how would you define winning well and losing well? Like, what are some characteristics of either one of those?
To me, it's how you handle it in that moment, right afterwards. Um, you have an opportunity to be excited and pop off, but do it respectfully. You have an opportunity to be incredibly angry, but to shake somebody's hand and then go around a corner and, vent to your coach a little bit. But it's how you react in those moments directly after, that I feel as though you have a lot of opportunity to learn about yourself. When we have competitions here, we'll see a variety of different reactions. And one of the things that I'm most proud about is that our game gym kids, they win well and they lose well. And whether they win or lose, they always dap, they always say GG. And, then they'll figure out the next part. And is that going to talk to my coach about how I'm disappointed at my play, or I'm going to celebrate with my teammates because I just crushed somebody, but I'm not throwing it in their face. It's really, to me, about those moments directly afterwards, because that's when you're at your most raw. 5-10 minutes, it's easy to go up to somebody and say, oh, like, good job, like, thank you, blah, blah, blah. But, in that moment, what is your character going to reveal? And those are the moments that I like to focus on.
Excellent.
If you can hold it together for those moments, you can hold it together for the rest of the thing, is the thinking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's that moment when the emotion is running most strong and all that kind of stuff. And if you can get through that, then reason can settle out a little bit more.
And
Usually.
We're not saying that you can't be angry or you can't be upset. It's just how you react to it, and whether you let that you could be upset. If you need to cry about it, that's fine. But find a moment, take your time, and but do it after you've said good job, and give yourself some space from the situation.
Well, what I like to think about too is like that our emotions, whether it be sadness, anger, joy, passion, whatever they may be, it's not really a negative or positive thing, but it's something that can help us understand what's our thinking behind all that. Because I think if we're getting, angry or sad about losing, for example, that's perfectly natural. But if it's maybe out of proportion or coming out in unhealthy ways, there's probably some self-worth issues there that maybe could be spoken into. That's why the value of a coach is so helpful and really helping people identify how valuable you really are and where you can find your value in things, as opposed to one game here or there. So that's good.
Totally.
You mentioned initially too the idea of knowing when to put the game down. How do you help kids discern that, and maybe even what do you even mean by that?
All right. So this is I've got a theory, and I'll use some visual aids.
Oh man, this is why we have video, people.
Right? Exactly. All right.
I'm waiting for a 3D hologram.
Nope.
Oh man.
All right. So.
Oh wow.
This is us. This is universal, and to me, this is you can't really argue with it. But whether this is athletics or video gaming, the bell curve is the same. So you start here and you warm up, then you get better, you hit your peak, and then at a certain point, you're on the down slope. And if you think about this as running, I'm warming up, now I'm crushing it, now I'm starting to cramp. So these things exist, and your brain works in this way, and your body works in this way. So you've got these three points: beginning, middle, and end. And so this end in running or swimming or biking, like eventually your body gives out. Your legs cramp, you're tired, whatever. There's a hard stop at this point. But with video gaming, it looks more like this. So what ends up happening is you still have that same bell curve, but you then play for 2 more hours. So your brain is just like a muscle in this, that you can't get your peak forever. There is a warm up, there is a peak, and there is a downward slope to that. But if you're gaming for 3 hours, that means that you've hit this slope, and now for the tail end, and for probably a majority of the time that you are playing, you're spending it down here. And think about that or equate it to running. Say you ran for an hour or whatever, like this span is different. So for you, maybe it's, an hour, maybe it's 45 minutes for me. For marathon runners, it's 4 hours. But this happens. This, regardless of who you are or whatever, this bell curve occurs. But imagine if you ran to exhaustion and then ran for 2 more hours. Your performance would drop. Your self-talk would be negative because you couldn't do the things you could do an hour ago, and it would be a struggle. And I feel as though too many gamers, if you're playing for 2 to 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours, 5 to 6 hours, you can't be here at your peak for that long. It's impossible. You just can't do it. So what ends up happening, if I'm a gamer, I'm spending a majority of my time practicing in that space. So to me, it's backwards. My coaches, when I was doing sports, they always said practice perfect practice makes perfect. Don't practice having poor form, because then you develop poor form. So my thinking is you want to be able to get to this point where you are creating a plateau, and where you build up, you get to your good point, but then because you've practiced at that high level for an extended period of time, you can stay at that high level for an extended period of time. You still have a drop off, like it will always occur, but your job and essentially is to develop old man brain strength, which is the great pro esports players can be at a high level for a long time because they've spent a lot of their time practicing up here at that high level and not down here at the tail end. So as I'm explaining that to kids, I say, look, you want to be good at video gaming? Well, practice when you're feeling good. If you feel yourself starting to drop off, or you know what it's like to be able to hit shots, and then all of a sudden you've been playing for an hour or two and now you can't hit shots anymore. Well, your brain is telling you that it's tired and it's time to take a break. And so what I do is first explain that to kids, that you can't be at your best forever, and that we're practicing this to get better, to treat it like a sport. And if that's the case, we need to give yourself time to recover. If you want to lift biceps and make your biceps bigger, you can't lift biceps every day. You have to lift biceps, then take a break, rest, recover, give yourselves 2 or 3 days, and then come back to it. And I feel like that mentality is not the same in video games. In video games, it's I'm going to hammer 10 hours of this. It's going to make me better. And I think it's more about reshaping how we think about practicing esports to fit into that. I'm spending a majority of my practice time at that peak point. And I feel like people don't do that.
And so developing, did you say old man brain? Did I make that up? Did you say that? Okay. And so I guess the idea is, in creating that longer plateau, is that, hey, you get up in that peak range. When you feel yourself dropping off, stop and take a break, come back, and then you'll be able to get back to that peak range. So basically most of your time is at that peak range. So over time, that peak range, in theory, it's like building endurance. Anything else?
It's the same thing. To me, it's not. That's the thing. It's the same thing that applies to swimming or basketball and football and every other sport. It's just nobody's applied it to video games. So to me, I think of managing how long you video game is super important, because it's different for you than it is for me. So only in that moment when your brain is getting tired. So to be able to know and acknowledge that my brain is getting tired, and then to take a break as a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old is something that you can use as a skill going forward.
Josh, this has been fantastic. Obviously you've got a wealth of information regarding gaming and traditional sports to share. We talked about a lot here. Is there anything that that maybe a question I haven't asked, or maybe something that's lingering with you want to share before we wind things up? No pressure, but I want to make sure you get a chance to share it in case I miss something.
For me, it's just that like esports is a huge opportunity. If you want to work in esports, you could find a job, maybe not right now, but like if you want to create content, start creating content right now because
By creating
5 years
content, you mean like gaming, video, yeah, anything.
YouTube. If you want to be on air, start commentating. If you want to be an analyst, start analyzing. If you want to be a creative, start drawing or making videos. Like this world has so many opportunities. Game Gym is in our infancy. We've just passed 1 year. But Game Gym plus 10 years, we are the premier youth esports, program in the United States. And that's the same for you. If you want to be a commentator, start making some videos, and 5, 10 years from now, you are, Golden Boy or one of the top, esports commentators. And there's just so many opportunities. And I really want to push people to don't wait because you're like, oh, I'm not that good yet, or this or that. Like good YouTube content creators, they've created thousands of videos and a lot of them were bad. And the reason why their content is good now is that they made a lot of bad videos when they were getting started and they learned. And that's being on air, that's being a photographer, that's being a TO, that's all of these different things. So I just really want to inspire people to take that shot because youth esports before we were doing it in our area didn't exist.
Right.
There are other things that don't exist out there that people have the opportunity to jump on. And if you don't, somebody else will. And if you do it now, by the time everybody else wakes up to what we're doing, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, you're the expert. So you just got to put in that time now. And I promise you, if you do that, it'll lead to good things.
Awesome. Great words, Josh. Thanks so much for that encouragement for everyone listening. Thanks for all your input today and everything you're doing through the Game Gym and setting a great example for us, but also a lot of young kids in your area and hopefully beyond.
Thank you so much. If anybody wants to ask me any questions, I'm happy to, offer advice or support. Feel free to reach out to me. My Twitter is GameGymJosh. My email is josh@gamegym.com. I'd love to hear from people. So if you agree or disagree with anything that I've said, or just want to connect and make another friend, would love to meet you.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.